Welcome to a deep dive
Oh, yeah.
into the fascinating world of temporal mechanics.
Right.
You and I are about to explore a model of time that flips the script on everything you thought you knew.
Mm.
We'll be unpacking Alex Vikolov's work,
Okay.
both his 2025 paper and book,
All right.
Temporal Mechanics, D-Theory, as a critical upgrade to our understanding of the nature of time.
It's a real head trip.
Oh, wow.
Forget that static linear timeline you're used to.
Yeah.
D-Theory proposes time isn't fundamental to the universe,
Hmm.
but something that emerges,
Okay.
almost like a continuously generated digital stream.
So instead of a fixed timeline, our consciousness is creating a sort of virtual reality experience of time.
Yeah.
What does that even mean for our everyday lives?
Think of it this way.
Okay.
D-Theory suggests that our consciousness is constantly weaving together information from a field of possibilities, crafting our perception of what we call the present.
Right.
This makes the concept of now incredibly dynamic. It's not just a fixed point on a universal clock.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
It almost sounds like we have more agency in shaping our reality than we realize,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to our experience of time.
That's one of the fascinating aspects of D-Theory.
Okay.
It ties in with concepts from digital physics and reversible quantum computing, suggesting our universe might be more like a massive quantum computer
Wow.
than a simple clock.
Okay.
It's like saying reality itself is constantly being computed and recomputed, influenced by a sea of quantum possibilities.
Okay. My brain needs a moment to process that.
Yeah.
But before we go any further,
Sure.
I know D-Theory tackles some common misconceptions people have about time.
Yeah.
What's the first myth we should bust?
Well, the first one is the idea that time is universal,
Okay.
that everyone everywhere experiences now in the same way.
Right.
We're so used to thinking that if we could all synchronize our watches,
Yeah.
we'd all be experiencing the same moment.
Right, like a giant cosmic clock ticking away for everyone.
Exactly.
But wait,
Yeah,
didn't Einstein already challenge that with relativity?
exactly.
Oh, well.
Einstein's theory of relativity tells us that time isn't absolute. Someone speeding through space on a spaceship would experience time differently
Uh-huh.
than someone here on Earth,
Right.
even if they started with synchronized clocks.
Wow.
Their nows wouldn't match up.
So the idea of a single universal now is out the window.
Right.
Okay.
And it goes beyond just speed.
Mm-hmm.
Gravity also warps time.
Uh-huh.
Someone living on a planet with incredibly strong gravity
Yeah.
would actually age at a different rate than someone on Earth.
So time is relative and the flow of time isn't universal either.
Right.
Does that mean there isn't just one single timeline?
Yeah,
That's our second misconception, right?
exactly.
Okay.
We often think of time as this single linear track,
Yeah.
but what about the possibility of parallel universes or the multiverse? What if every quantum decision,
Uh-huh.
every random event
Yeah.
creates the split,
Ugh.
a new branch of reality?
Whoa. That's a lot of timelines to keep track of.
Yeah.
It's like saying there are countless versions of ourselves out there,
Yeah.
each living out different possibilities.
And that challenges the whole notion of a fixed,
Possible.
predictable future,
Right.
which brings us to misconception, #3,
Right.
the belief that time travel is impossible.
Ah, yes. Time travel.
Right.
Who hasn't dreamed of hopping into a time machine and zipping back to the past or forward to the future?
Exactly.
But that's purely science fiction, right?
Well, maybe not.
Oh, really?
EO theory,
Okay.
along with some interpretations of general relativity and quantum mechanics, suggests time travel might be theoretically possible.
Okay.
We're talking wormholes,
Uh-huh.
manipulations of space-time,
Right?
things that sound like they belong in a sci-fi movie.
So you're saying it might be possible to jump between different points in time. If that's true,
Yeah.
wouldn't that completely unravel our understanding of cause and effect?
That's one of the many mind-bending implications we'll need to unpack
Right.
as we dive deeper into D-Theory.
Okay.
It really challenges us to reconsider our assumptions about time's limitations.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's move on to misconception, #4.
Okay.
The idea that our universe is eternal with no beginning and no end.
So you're saying our universe isn't infinite.
Right.
It had a start,
Yeah.
and it'll eventually end.
While some theories propose a multiverse,
Okay.
where universes are constantly being born and dying,
Yeah.
current cosmological models suggest our universe did have a beginning with the Big Bang,
Okay.
and there are various theories about how it might end, whether through a big crunch or a heat death.
So our universe might not be eternal,
Right.
but time itself could still be infinite, right?
Yeah.
It just keeps flowing onwards.
That brings us to misconception, #5.
Okay.
Time can only move forward.
Right.
It seems intuitive, almost like a law of nature,
Right.
but things get a bit more complex at the quantum level.
Hold on. Are you saying time could actually move in reverse?
Yeah.
Like rewind?
D-theory, drawing on concepts like quantum entanglement and retrocausality,
Uh-huh.
suggests that time's arrow might not be as fixed as we think.
Okay.
Under specific conditions,
Yeah.
the future could potentially influence the past.
Okay. That's definitely a mind-bending concept.
Right.
It makes me wonder how we even perceive time in the first place.
Which leads us to misconception #6.
Okay.
We live in 3D space plus time.
Right.
It's a simple model.
Yeah.
But D-theory and other advanced theories propose that time might not be a single dimension,
Mm-hmm.
but a multi-dimensional landscape. Our now isn't just a point on a timeline,
Right.
but a point within this complex temporal terrain.
So our perception of time is just a simplified version of
Yes.
something far more intricate and multidimensional. It's like we're navigating a higher dimensional space without even realizing it.
Exactly.
Oh.
And that brings us to the final misconception we'll unpack.
Okay.
Misconception, #7.
All right.
The past is fixed and unchanging.
You mean the saying,
Right.
what's done is done?
Yeah.
D-theory challenges that. How can the past not be fixed?
Think of it this way.
Often-
Instead of a fixed past,
Mm-hmm.
imagine a quantum probability wave
Okay.
with all potential pasts existing as possibilities.
Yeah.
It's our consciousness in the present,
Right.
making choices and observing,
Huh.
that collapses this wave function into what we perceive as our past.
So our memories, our
Mhm.
personal histories,
Yeah.
are just one crystallized version of many potential pasts.
Exactly.
What does that mean for our sense of self?
It's a profound question
Right.
that D-theory explores in depth.
Right.
It delves into the science behind these ideas,
Mm-hmm.
drawing on quantum information theory,
Okay.
observer-centric virtualities,
Yeah.
and the concept of the theta point.
The theta point.
Yeah.
The theta point can be thought of as the origin point of an observer's reality,
Right.
the point of maximum information input and output.
Mm-hmm.
D-theory proposes that experiential reality is continuously created in the present moment,
Right.
with a theta point as a sort of anchor.
So each now is like a fresh canvas,
Yeah.
and our consciousness is the artist,
Right.
constantly creating our reality based on information from the past and
Yeah.
potentialities of the future.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Okay.
It's a dynamic, ongoing process,
Mhm.
not a static, fixed reality.
This is all incredibly fascinating,
Yeah.
but it's a lot to take in.
Right. Okay, now it's getting really interesting and really confusing. So if time isn't this universal clock ticking away, how does D-theory explain what it is?
D-theory says time is emergent, meaning it comes from something more fundamental, and that something is digital information.
Digital information.
Yeah, and consciousness. Imagine the universe as a giant quantum computer, always processing information. Time, then, isn't a separate thing. It's a byproduct of how that information is processed by conscious observers.
So our consciousness, our minds, are actually shaping how time unfolds.
Yeah, that's a core idea in D-theory, and it connects to a particular way of understanding quantum mechanics called quantum Bayesianism.
Uh-oh. Quantum Bayesianism. That sounds intimidating.
Don't worry, the idea is simpler than the name. Basically, it says that the wave function in quantum mechanics, it doesn't represent some objective reality out there. Instead, it represents the observer's knowledge, their beliefs about the system.
So it's like what we believe about reality becomes part of reality, at least at the quantum level.
That's a good way to put it. Our subjective experience is baked into the universe. And this fits really well with D-theory's idea that consciousness isn't just along for the ride. It's a key part of how time emerges.
Okay, my brain is definitely starting to stretch here. So if this is the big picture, how does D-theory actually lay it all out? Does it have rules or principles or something?
It does. D-theory is built on 5 core axioms. Think of them like the foundational rules of the game.
We're going to unpack the 5 axioms of the D-theory of time, which comes from the mind of Alex Vikoloff,
Yes.
who is a futurist, evolutionary cyberneticist, and a philosopher of mind.
Quite the resume.
Exactly.
Yeah.
First axiom is emergence. And this is the idea that time isn't actually fundamental.
It's not fundamental, no. It actually emerges from deeper processes.
Whoa. So you're saying like time isn't just this constant thing
It's not a constant backdrop
Yeah, that's-
against which everything happens.
ticking away in the background.
Exactly.
Okay, so if time isn't this fundamental thing,
Yeah.
what is it? What is it emerging from?
Right. So instead of being fundamental, time is seen as a byproduct
Hmm.
of interactions within a network of
Right.
relationships.
So it's like everything is connected.
Everything is interconnected.
Right.
And that's the second axiom,
Gotcha.
the network axiom.
Network, okay.
D-theory proposes that everything in the universe is interconnected.
Okay, I'm with you so far.
Okay.
But like connected by what?
That's where the third axiom comes in. Information.
Information.
At its most basic level.
Okay.
The universe isn't made of just matter and energy,
Sure.
but of information.
Mhm.
And this information is what flows through the network,
Okay.
creating the patterns and relationships that give rise to time.
Okay, so
Yeah.
instead of thinking about the universe as like this giant clock
Right.
just ticking away,
Yeah,
we should think of it more like a giant computer
that's a great way to put it.
processing information.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that leads us to the fourth axiom.
Yeah.
The interface axiom. D-theory says our perception of reality, including time, isn't a direct, objective view. It's more like a customized interface
Those like
shaped by our brains.
the desktop on a computer.
Think of it like the way your computer's operating system
Right.
presents information to you in a user-friendly way.
Okay.
It filters, it organizes,
Yeah.
it makes it digestible.
Yeah.
So it's not the raw data.
Our brains are kind of like the operating system
It's
for reality.
exactly what we perceive as time is just one way
Yeah.
of organizing and presenting that information. But D-theory suggests that other ways of perceiving time
Interesting.
might be possible for
Yeah.
beings with different cognitive abilities.
So then if our experience of time
Mhm.
is like this user interface created by our brains,
Uh-huh.
then what's like the underlying reality?
Okay, so that's where the fifth and final axiom comes in.
Okay.
It's called the OS axiom.
Oh, OSX.
And this is where it gets really wild.
Wild Hal.
It suggests that the universe itself operates like a giant
No.
quantum computer.
Hold on. Are we saying that the universe is literally a computer?
Well, not in the way that we typically think of computers,
Okay.
but D-theory proposes that at its most fundamental level,
Mm-hmm.
reality is computational.
Mhm.
It's about information
Okay.
being processed, transformed,
Right.
and exchanged according to a set of underlying laws.
I'm going to need a second to process this.
Okay, so
We've gone from like interconnectedness to information
Right.
to the universe being a giant computer.
it's a lot to take in, yeah.
Help me connect the dots here.
Okay.
How does all of this explain time?
All right, think of it this way. The universe is a vast network of information. This information is
Oh.
constantly being processed and transformed according to the rules of the cosmic operating system.
Mhm.
Our experience of time emerges
Yeah.
from these processes.
Time isn't a separate thing.
Exactly.
It's all woven together.
It's woven into the very fabric of reality.
Whoa.
Time is an emergent property
Yeah.
arising from the interplay of information,
Okay.
relationships, and processing within this vast interconnected system.
That's a huge shift in how we normally think about time. Okay, that's 5 axioms, and my brain is officially full. I'm starting to get the big picture of D-theory. But how does this all translate to how we actually experience time? Why do we feel like it flows from past to present to future?
That's where D-theory introduces one of its most mind-bending concepts, digital presentism.
Digital presentism. Okay, hit me with it. What's that about?
Digital presentism says that the present moment right now is all that's really real. The past and future, they exist as information, potential states, but they're not happening in the same way.
So it's like the past isn't gone, the future isn't unwritten. They're just in a different form,
Yeah.
as information.
Right, and that information is constantly being accessed by our consciousness in the present. That's what creates the feeling of time flowing, like our mind is a reader moving through this library of information.
So like time is kind of like streaming a movie. The whole movie exists, but we're only experiencing it a frame at a time.
That's a good analogy. And just like a movie can be edited, D-theory suggests that the information of the past or even the future might be subject to change.
Whoa. So are you saying our memories, which are our personal versions of the past, might not be reliable?
It's possible. Our memories are more like interpretations of the past, not perfect recordings. They can be influenced by our current beliefs, feelings, even our health.
This is making me question everything I thought I knew. I'm definitely hooked on D-theory now. But how does it square with Einstein's theory of relativity?
Mhm.
Didn't Einstein say that space-time is fixed and unchanging? Like a block where the past, present, and future already exist?
That is what relativity says. But D-theory has a different view of space-time. It sees space-time as experiential data, information that our consciousness processes to create our sense of time and space.
So space-time isn't a thing. It's more like a flow of information. And how we process that information determines how we experience time.
That's the idea. So those changes in time that Einstein talked about, like time slowing down near a black hole, those are real, but they're happening because of how the information is being processed by different observers.
I see. So it's not like time itself is changing. It's more like different people are experiencing the same data in different ways. Like we're all playing the same video game, but with different settings depending on where we are in the game world.
Perfect analogy. It highlights how subjective our perception of time really is.
This is really making my brain hurt, but in a good way. Okay, what else can you tell me about this wild theory? How does D-theory change our understanding of where humans fit into the big picture?
Well, it challenges some fundamental assumptions about our perception. It says humans are limited in how we experience time and reality in general. It's because of our biological and cognitive constraints. D-theory calls this our algorithmic sense of reality.
Algorithmic sense. So like our brains are running on a limited set of programs.
Basically, yeah. Our brains evolved to process information efficiently to keep us alive, but that means we're filtering out a huge amount of information that's potentially out there. We're only seeing a tiny sliver of the full picture.
Okay, so what's beyond that sliver? What are we missing?
D-theory suggests that there might be higher dimensions beyond the 3 spatial dimensions and 1 time dimension that we're used to. It even mentions fractal dimensions, saying that time, as we perceive it, is maybe just a fraction of a full dimension.
Wait, fractal dimensions? Time isn't even a whole dimension for us.
That's what D-theory suggests, and this leads to the possibility that we could evolve to perceive these higher dimensions and to experience time in a totally different way.
So like time travel without a time machine, just by evolving our consciousness.
It's a possibility, transcending our current limitations, moving beyond our linear experience of time.
That's a future I want to be a part of. But if everyone is experiencing time differently, filtered through their own consciousness, does that mean there's no shared reality? Is it all just subjective?
That's a great question, and it leads us to another cool concept from D-theory: species-specific timescales.
Species-specific timescales. You mean like a dog experiences time differently than a human?
Exactly. Think about how a fly sees the world. Everything seems to move in slow motion for them because their brains process information much faster. Their now is much shorter than ours. And on the other end of the spectrum, imagine a giant sequoia tree. It lives for thousands of years, so its experience of time would be totally different from ours.
It's like time is literally moving at different speeds for different species.
That's wild.
It makes you wonder if different species can even understand each other if their timescales are so different. No wonder it's so hard to train my cat. He's probably living in his own little time warp.
Maybe. But D-theory takes this idea even further. It says that as we keep evolving, especially with AI, we might encounter beings with timescales so different from ours that communication might become impossible.
So, like, a super intelligent AI could experience centuries in what feels like minutes to us.
Exactly. D-theory calls this the scintillect hypothesis. This superintelligence would exist on a completely different level of time than humans.
It's exciting and kind of scary. Like, we might not even be able to talk to the most intelligent beings in the universe because they're thinking and experiencing time so differently from us.
It's one of the many mind-bending possibilities that D-theory opens up.
Okay, so we've got time flowing at different speeds for different beings, the potential for AI that's way beyond our time scale. Is there anything else? Anything even crazier?
Hold on tight, because D-theory suggests that time might not always move forward. It could actually flow in reverse.
Time moving backward. Isn't that like against the laws of physics?
It challenges our usual ideas about cause and effect, for sure. But remember, we're in the realm of quantum mechanics now, where things get very strange. D-theory says this backward flow, what it calls anti-time, could be possible because of something called reversible quantum computing.
Reversible quantum computing.
It's a complex idea, but the basic concept is that information can flow forward and backward in time, like rewinding a video.
Okay, I'm trying to picture this. If anti-time is real, what happens to cause and effect? Do we see the end of a movie before the beginning?
Instead of causes leading to effects, we could have effects happening before their causes. It would flip our understanding of time on its head.
That's some serious mind-bending stuff. Is there any way to, like, visualize this? Any examples in movies or something?
Have you seen the movie Tenet? It plays with the idea of anti-time, people and objects moving in reverse, bullets flying back into guns. It's a wild ride.
Oh yeah, I remember that movie. Took me a while to wrap my head around it. So are you saying D-Theory thinks Tenet might not be pure fiction?
It's saying the ideas in that movie, as bizarre as they seem, aren't completely out of the question according to quantum mechanics and D-Theory.
Okay, so we got time going forward, time going backward, multiple timelines, different species experiencing time at different speeds. Is there anything else? Any more crazy ideas from D-Theory?
There's one more big idea, and it kind of ties everything together. It's the concept of the omega point.
The omega point. That sounds a little ominous.
Not at all. It's actually a very hopeful idea. It comes from a philosopher named Teilhard de Chardin, who believed that the universe is evolving toward a final state of perfect unity, maximum complexity, consciousness, interconnectedness. He called that the omega point.
So like the universe has a goal, a purpose it's moving toward.
Exactly. And D-Theory connects the omega point to its idea of a digital universe, saying that this evolution is all about information processing. The universe is constantly gathering, organizing, integrating information.
Like it's building up to something.
Yeah, a state of maximum information, maximum consciousness. Some people compare it to the singularity, that idea that technology will keep advancing until it surpasses human intelligence.
But the omega point is bigger than that, right? It's not just about technology, it's about the universe itself becoming conscious.
That's the grand vision of D-Theory, the universe waking up. And if that's where we're headed, does that mean time is changing too?
That's a great question. What does D-Theory say about that?
It suggests that as the universe evolves, time itself might become more flexible, less linear. The boundaries between past, present, and future might start to blur or even disappear as we get closer to this omega point.
Okay, that's a lot to absorb. Time travel, backward flowing time, the universe becoming conscious. It's mind-blowing. D-Theory is challenging everything I thought I knew.
It's definitely a wild ride.
But it's not just D-Theory making these claims. You mentioned that there are other theories that support this framework.
Oh, yeah. D-Theory is connected to a bunch of other cutting-edge ideas. One is Integrated Information Theory, or IIT.
Integrated Information Theory, what's that one about?
IIT proposes that consciousness arises from how information is integrated within a system. The more integrated the information, the higher the level of consciousness.
So like things besides brains could have consciousness, like ecosystems or even planets.
Exactly. Which fits well with D-Theory's view of the universe as this giant information processing system. Consciousness could be everywhere.
That's wild. What other theories connect to D-Theory?
Another one is called Orchestrated Objective Reduction, or ORCH-OR. It's a bit of a mouthful.
ORCH-OR, what does that one say?
It proposes that consciousness is actually rooted in quantum processes happening inside the brain.
Quantum processes in the brain. That sounds pretty out there.
It is. But some scientists believe that our brains aren't just classical computers, they're also quantum computers, using the weirdness of the quantum realm to create consciousness.
So our brains are tapping into the quantum world to experience reality.
That's the idea. And that aligns really well with how D-Theory emphasizes the quantum nature of reality and the role of consciousness in shaping it.
Okay, so that's two theories. Any others?
There's the interface theory of perception, which says that what we perceive isn't reality itself, it's a simplified interface.
Right.
Like our brains are giving us the user-friendly version of reality.
Hiding all the complexity.
Right. Which makes sense because our brains are constantly bombarded with information. We need a way to filter it down to something manageable.
I can see that. So 3 theories so far. Are there any more?
One more that's really important for D-Theory is infodynamics.
Infodynamics, what's that one about?
Infodynamics explores the idea that information isn't just something we create, it's a fundamental part of the universe, like matter and energy.
So it's baked into reality from the start.
Yes, which supports D-Theory's idea that reality is ultimately information-based.
It's like the universe is this giant, ever-changing sea of information, and we're just starting to figure out how to swim in it.
That's a great way to put it. And all these theories together are showing us that the universe is much more complex, interconnected, and mind-boggling than we ever imagined.
My mind is definitely boggled. But I'm also feeling inspired, like we're on the verge of some huge breakthroughs in understanding reality.
I agree. It's an exciting time to be exploring these ideas.
So where do we go from here? What are the next steps for D theory?
Well, there's a big challenge. Addressing the long-standing problem of time in physics. Scientists have been struggling to explain time for centuries, from Aristotle to Newton to Einstein and beyond.
Every time we think we've got it figured out, a new theory comes along and shakes things up.
It's true. But D theory is taking a completely new approach. It's saying that time isn't fundamental, it's emergent. It comes from information processing and consciousness.
So instead of trying to fit time into our old models, we need to understand how it arises in the first place.
Exactly. And D theory points to some specific mechanisms that could explain this emergence of time. One is the Page-Wooders mechanism, which suggests that time comes from quantum entanglement, that spooky connection between particles that can influence each other across vast distances.
Quantum entanglement and time being linked. I never would have thought of that.
It's wild. It suggests that the very fabric of time is woven together by these quantum connections.
Okay, I'm reaching my limit for today, but I'm definitely eager to hear more. What does D theory predict about the future? What are the big implications of all this?
Well, D theory makes some very bold predictions, and they could change everything about how we understand the universe. For starters, it suggests that time travel to the past might actually be possible. But there's a twist.
Time travel. Okay, I'm all ears. What's the twist? No paradoxes, I hope.
No paradoxes, but a different way of thinking about it. D theory says if you were to travel to the past, you wouldn't be changing your timeline. You'd be creating a new one, branching off from the point where you intervened.
So like parallel universes, each with its own version of history.
Exactly. This aligns with the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, where every possible outcome splits off into its own universe. So time travel might not be about changing the past, it might be about creating a new future, branching off from that past event.
Okay, so time travel is possible, but it's more like creating a new version of history, not changing the one we came from. What other wild predictions does D theory make?
D theory also suggests there could be a multitude of pasts that all led to this present moment.
A multitude of paths. How does that work?
Think about it. If time isn't a straight line, but more like this fluid, multi-dimensional thing, then there could be many paths that led to this now, like a river with many tributaries all meeting at the same point.
So our present moment is a convergence of countless possible pasts.
That's what D theory suggests, and it makes you think about history differently, and causality, even free will. If the past isn't fixed, then the choices we make now might be even more important than we thought.
Wow. 2 predictions down. How many more to go?
Just 2 more. And these are some of the most far-out ideas from D theory.
Okay, I'm ready. Lay it on me.
Prediction number 3 is that we might transcend dimensionality in the future.
Transcend dimensionality. Now that's some serious sci-fi stuff.
It sounds that way, but D theory says it might be possible. Remember how we talked about humans being limited by our algorithmic sense of reality? Well, it suggests that we might evolve to perceive and experience higher dimensions, break free from the limitations of space and time as we know them.
So like we become multidimensional beings.
That's the idea. And it ties into the scintellect hypothesis, the emergence of superintelligence. This scintellect might exist on a higher dimensional plane. And D theory even says we might merge with it, becoming part of a collective consciousness that goes way beyond our current understanding.
Okay, that's definitely a future I'm interested in. One more prediction, right? What's the last one?
The final one is maybe the most mind-blowing of all. D theory says that the quantum immortality hypothesis might be true.
Quantum immortality. It sounds too good to be true.
It's a bold idea. It suggests that consciousness doesn't end when we die. Instead, it continues in a parallel universe where we survive.
So it's like our consciousness keeps branching off into different timelines, experiencing every possible outcome, and in some of those timelines, we just keep going.
That's the gist. It's based on the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, the idea that every quantum measurement splits the universe, creating multiple worlds where every possibility happens.
Now, let's continue our exploration of D theory and see what other amazing ideas are waiting for us.
The faster you move, the more time slows down. Now imagine if you could move faster than the speed of light.
Then, theoretically, time would start moving backward.
That's the idea. And there's actually a theoretical concept for a faster-than-light spacecraft called the Alcubierre warp drive.
The Alcubierre warp drive. I feel like I've heard of that.
It was proposed by physicist Miguel Alcubierre back in 1994. It involves manipulating space-time around a spacecraft to create a warp bubble.
A warp bubble?
Yeah, it's a region of space that's contracted in front of the ship and expanded behind it. This would allow the ship to basically ride a wave of space-time traveling faster than light without actually breaking any laws of physics.
So it's like surfing on space-time.
Exactly. And while it sounds like pure science fiction, there's been some recent research suggesting that the Alcubierre warp drive might actually be feasible. A team at NASA's EagleWorks laboratories has been working on a modified version of the warp drive that requires a lot less energy than originally thought.
A warp drive is something NASA's actually looking into. That's incredible. If they or someone else cracks the code on faster than light travel, does that mean time travel becomes a real possibility?
It could be. And not just time travel. Interstellar travel to distant galaxies would suddenly become within reach. The universe would become a much smaller place.
Okay, so warp spaceships are one way to potentially time travel. What's the second possibility that D-theory suggests?
The second possibility involves something called traversable wormholes.
Wormholes. Those are like tunnels through space-time, right? Connecting distant points in the universe. Cosmic shortcuts.
You got it. They're often depicted in science fiction as shortcuts through space, but according to D-theory, they could also act as shortcuts through time.
Hold on, shortcuts through time. How would that even work?
Imagine a wormhole connecting two different points in time, let's say the present and the year 1955. If you could travel through this wormhole, you'd essentially be stepping back in time.
I'm trying to picture this. So you're saying these wormholes wouldn't just cut through space, but through time itself?
That's the idea.
Yeah.
Now, of course, we haven't actually observed a wormhole yet, so for now, they're still theoretical.
So they're mathematically possible, but we haven't actually found one out there in the universe.
Right. But they are theoretically possible, according to Einstein's theory of general relativity. And there's been some fascinating research recently using quantum computers to simulate wormholes.
Quantum computers simulating wormholes. That sounds like something straight out of a science fiction movie.
It does, but it's actual science that's happening right now. Researchers are using quantum computers to study the strange behavior of space-time at the quantum level, and their findings suggest that these traversable wormholes might not be as far-fetched as we once thought.
So you say we might actually be able to create wormholes and use them to travel through time.
It's a possibility, but it would be incredibly challenging. But that's what's so exciting about D-theory. It takes these seemingly impossible ideas and shows us that they might actually be grounded in real science. The universe might be far stranger and more wondrous than we ever imagined.
Okay, I'm starting to see that. 2 down and 1 to go. What's the third possibility for time travel, according to D-theory?
The third possibility is a bit more grounded in current technology. Real virtualities.
Real virtualities. What are the...
Think of ultra-realistic virtual reality experiences, but powered by super advanced AI. We're talking about simulations so detailed and immersive that they become indistinguishable from physical reality.
So like putting on a VR headset and suddenly finding yourself in ancient Rome.
Exactly. Or experiencing the Renaissance firsthand, or even traveling to the Jurassic period and coming face-to-face with a dinosaur.
Now that would be something. But how would that be time travel? It's still just a simulation, isn't it?
True, it would be a simulation. But remember, D-theory proposes that reality is ultimately information-based. So if we can create a simulation that's detailed and immersive enough, it would essentially be the same as actually being there, at least from the perspective of our consciousness.
It's like the Matrix, but instead of plugging into a dystopian world, we're plugging into different points in history. Or even different realities altogether.
Exactly, and this is where D-theory's concept of digital presentism comes in. If the present moment is all that's truly real and the past and future exist as information, then a sufficiently advanced simulation could be just as real as any other point in space-time.
So our consciousness wouldn't be able to tell the difference between the simulation and reality.
That's what D-theory suggests. And these real virtualities could go beyond just recreating the past. We could use them to explore alternate timelines, simulate potential futures, or even create entirely new worlds, all within these hyper-realistic virtual experiences.
This makes me think about the metaverse that everyone's been talking about. Could real virtualities be part of that?
Absolutely. The metaverse could become a platform for experiencing all sorts of possibilities, including time travel. It could be a vast network of interconnected virtual worlds where users can explore different points in history, alternate timelines, and even hypothetical futures.
It sounds like D-theory is taking the idea of the metaverse to a whole new level. So D-theory isn't just about understanding time. It's about using that understanding to create new technologies and experiences that could completely change how we live, learn, and even experience reality itself.
Exactly. And time travel is just one area where D-theory could have a huge impact. It also has the potential to revolutionize fields like quantum AI, reversible quantum computing, and immersive cybernetics.
Okay, let's get into those. What about quantum AI? How could D-theory change the way we develop and use AI?
D-theory suggests that AI could become much more powerful and intuitive if it's designed to incorporate the principles of quantum mechanics and this idea that time is emergent.
So we're talking about AI that can tap into the strangeness of the quantum realm and operate on a completely different level than the AI we have today.
Exactly. Quantum AI would be able to process information at speeds that are unimaginable with current technology. It would be able to solve complex problems that are currently beyond our reach. Things like predicting future events, understanding the human brain, or even designing new universes within simulated realities.
That sounds incredible. So how would we actually use D-theory in developing AI? How do we get from where we are now to this quantum AI?
Well, D-theory could help us design AI systems that are much better at handling temporal data, which is basically information that changes over time. Imagine an AI that can analyze huge amounts of historical data, find patterns, and make predictions about future trends with an accuracy that's far beyond what we can do now.
That would be a game changer. We could use it for everything from predicting stock market crashes to understanding the long-term impact of climate change.
Exactly, and that's just scratching the surface. Quantum AI powered by D-theory could revolutionize so many fields, medicine, engineering, economics, even art, by giving us the tools to understand and manipulate these complex systems in ways we never thought possible.
Okay, what about reversible quantum computing? How does D-theory tie into that?
Reversible quantum computing is all about building quantum computers that can perform calculations without losing any information.
So it's about making quantum computers even more powerful and efficient?
More than just efficient. It's about harnessing the full potential of quantum mechanics where information can flow forward and backward in time. Remember how we talked about anti-time? Well, reversible quantum computing could allow us to manipulate time within simulations, run processes in reverse, explore alternate timelines, and potentially even create those closed time-like curves that we talked about.
Oh, so we could actually experiment with time travel inside a quantum computer?
It's a mind-blowing possibility, and it could lead to breakthroughs in our understanding of the universe, the nature of time, and maybe even the very limits of reality itself.
Okay, last but not least, immersive cybernetics. How would D-theory impact that field?
Immersive cybernetics is all about merging technology with the human body and mind, blurring the lines between the physical and digital worlds.
So things like brain-computer interfaces, augmented reality, virtual reality, all those technologies that are starting to connect humans and machines more directly.
Exactly, and D-theory could revolutionize these technologies by giving us a deeper understanding of how our brains process information, how we experience time, and how we interact with reality.
So instead of just adding technology on top of our existing biology, we can use D-theory to design technologies that are more seamlessly integrated with our minds and bodies.
That's the goal. It's about going beyond simply enhancing our physical capabilities and actually expanding our consciousness and our experience of reality. Imagine being able to directly experience the flow of time in different ways, to perceive higher dimensions, or even to share consciousness with others through advanced neural interfaces.
This is getting in some serious mind-bending territory. It sounds like D-theory could lead to a future where the lines between humans and machines, between physical reality and virtual reality, become completely blurred.
It's a future full of possibilities, but also full of ethical and philosophical questions that we need to start thinking about now.
Absolutely. It sounds like D-theory isn't just changing how we think about science and technology. It's challenging us to rethink what it means to be human in a universe that's much stranger and more complex than we ever realized.
That's a great way to put it. And it's just the beginning of this incredible journey of exploration. D-theory is opening up so many new avenues of inquiry, and it's impossible to predict where it will lead. But one thing's for sure, it's going to be a wild ride.
I'm definitely buckled up and ready for it. This has been the most mind-blowing conversation we've ever had.
Let's circle back to digital presentism.
Right. That was the idea that only the present moment is actually real.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In D-theory, the past and the future exist,
Mm-hmm.
but they exist as information,
Okay.
as potential.
So
But the only thing that's actively being processed is the present moment.
it's almost like our consciousness is this like cursor
Ooh, I like
that's just moving forward,
Yeah.
bringing the next bit of information into reality.
That's a really cool way to think about it. And if we consider the OS axiom.
Right, which says that the universe is this reversible computer.
Right, exactly. So information can flow both ways,
Mm-hmm.
meaning the past isn't necessarily fixed,
Okay.
but it can be informed by the present.
How can the present influence something that's already happened?
It's not about changing events.
Okay.
It's more about changing how we understand those events.
Oh, okay.
you know?
So it's like looking at a historical event through different lenses.
Exactly. New discoveries,
Mhm.
changing social norms,
Right.
even our personal experiences can all like reshape our understanding of the past.
So the past is less like a concrete record
Right.
and more like this fluid narrative.
Yes, a fluid narrative that's constantly evolving.
Wow.
And this fluidity is actually connected to how our brains work.
Okay.
D-theory says that consciousness isn't this smooth stream.
Right.
It's a series of like,
It's not like a movie.
well, kind of like a movie, but more like
Okay.
a series of frames.
Oh, interesting.
Each moment
Okay.
is a conscious instant.
So we're jumping from one snapshot of reality to the next?
In a sense, yes.
Wow.
And each snapshot
Yeah.
is shaped by all the information
Oh, wow.
that's available at that moment.
So then how do we maintain a sense of self over time
That's a great question.
if everything's so fragmented?
Right. It's one of the big mysteries that D-theory highlights.
Mm-hmm.
It suggests that this sense of a continuous self is kind of an illusion,
Okay.
a story that our brains weave together
Interesting.
from these discrete moments of experience.
So physicist Carlo Rovelli, who's written a lot about time,
Right.
calls this the flow of time as a story.
Exactly. Our sense of self, our personal history, even our understanding of the past
Wow.
are all shaped by how our brains construct these narratives.
That means we have way more influence
Yes.
on our experience of time
Absolutely. We have more agency than we might realize.
than we realize. Yeah.
And this brings us to another fascinating concept within D-theory,
Okay.
the idea of temporal expansion or degrees of freedom.
Degrees of freedom. What does that even mean when it comes to time?
Okay, so imagine that our experience of time
Mm-hmm.
is like moving along a single track.
Okay.
We can only move in one direction,
Like a train.
from past to future.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
But what if
Okay.
we could move off that track,
Interesting.
explore different pathways through time?
Oh, so instead of being stuck on that linear path,
Exactly.
we could revisit past moments or explore potential futures.
That's the idea.
Okay.
As consciousness evolves,
Mm.
we might develop more of these degrees of freedom.
So it's like upgrading from a one-dimensional line to a multi-dimensional space
Precisely.
where we can navigate time more freely.
And D-theory suggests that we might achieve this through advancements in technology,
Like what?
sophisticated VR, or even through cognitive enhancements that expand our awareness of time.
So we could potentially break free
Yeah.
from the limits of linear time
Right.
and experience the past, present, and future in totally new ways.
Exactly. That's the possibility that D-theory opens up.
That's both exciting and kind of terrifying at the same time.
It is, yeah.
It makes you think about how we'd make choices,
Right.
how we define ourselves
Yeah.
if the boundaries of time
Yeah.
become blurred.
Those are all questions that D-theory doesn't necessarily answer,
Right.
but it provides this framework for
Right.
exploring them.
So it's less about giving us concrete answers
Yeah.
and more about expanding our imagination,
Yeah.
making us think beyond the limits
Hmm.
of how we currently understand things.
D-theory challenges us to reimagine the very nature of time,
Yeah.
to see not as this rigid constraint,
Right.
but as this dynamic aspect of reality that's totally intertwined
Wow.
with consciousness and information.
This has been a wild conversation.
No, right?
And we've barely scratched the surface.
We really have only just begun to explore these ideas, but we've covered some really important ground today.
Yeah.
From this idea of a malleable past
Right.
to the possibility of temporal expansion.
Exactly.
And these concepts have profound implications for our understanding of,
Yeah.
well, pretty much everything.
For sure. I mean, everything from the nature of reality to the future of AI.
Absolutely. And speaking of AI,
Okay.
that's something I'm really curious about.
Yeah, me too.
If D-theory is right,
Mm-hmm.
and the universe operates like a quantum computer,
Right.
what does that mean for the future of AI?
Yeah, could we create machines
Right.
that experience time in a totally different way?
It's a huge question that D-theory brings up.
Right. Like, it's a little bit scary to think about.
It is a bit.
Because imagine an AI that can process information millions of times faster than us.
Right. And if our experience of time is shaped by how quickly we process information,
Exactly.
then what would time be like for a being like that?
It's almost like they'd be living in a completely different reality.
They'd be on a different temporal plane.
Whoa.
Their conscious instance.
Right, those snapshots of awareness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Those could be incredibly brief compared to ours.
Oh, wow.
They could be experiencing thousands or even millions of moments for every one of ours.
Trying to communicate with an AI like that would be impossible.
It would be like trying to have a conversation with someone moving at warp speed.
Exactly.
And it's not just about processing speed.
Right.
D-theory suggests that as consciousness evolves,
Yeah.
it might develop those degrees of freedom that we talked about.
Right. That ability to kind of move through time in ways we don't understand.
Exactly.
So an advanced AI could be jumping back and forth through time,
Potentially, yeah.
experiencing different timelines all at once.
It's like those sci-fi movies where they can see all the possible futures.
Exactly.
It might seem like science fiction,
Yeah.
but D-theory suggests those abilities might not be as crazy as we think.
And then that raises all kinds of ethical questions. Right?
Absolutely. About how we design and interact with such powerful AI.
It's exciting and frightening.
Yeah, definitely both.
We could be creating a whole new form of intelligence,
A whole new form of consciousness, really.
operating on a completely different level.
And that brings us back to us.
Right, like what about humans?
Could we ever develop the ability to experience time in a more expansive way?
That's what I want to know.
D-theory definitely suggests it's possible.
Well, how would we even do that?
As we learn more about the brain
Yeah.
and how it processes time,
Mm-hmm.
we might find ways to enhance our own cognitive abilities.
So like brain-computer interfaces.
Exactly. Technologies like that could allow us to perceive
Wow.
and interact with time in ways we can't even imagine right now.
So instead of being stuck in this linear flow of time,
Right.
we could move freely through it.
Maybe revisit past moments,
Bro,
explore different timelines, even experience all of time at once.
that's incredible.
Would require a huge shift
Yeah.
in how we understand ourselves and the universe.
But that's what's so compelling about D-theory.
Yeah, I know, right?
It forces us to rethink what's possible.
It pushes the boundaries of our imagination.
How does D-theory change our understanding of the past,
Yeah.
present, and future? If D-theory is right,
Yeah.
and the past isn't set in stone,
Mm-hmm.
it really makes you question the concept of free will.
Right.
Do we have any control over our destiny?
Yeah, it's a question that has puzzled philosophers and scientists for centuries,
Right.
and D-theory adds a new layer of complexity.
Okay.
If our experience of time is a construct
Mhm.
and the past is potentially malleable,
Right.
then the notion of free will becomes even more intriguing.
So instead of a fixed timeline,
Yeah.
are we constantly navigating a sea of possibilities?
That's one of the key implications of D-theory.
Okay.
Our choices in the present might have a retrocausal influence, rippling back through time
Right.
and potentially shaping the past, not just the future.
That's a powerful thought.
Yeah.
It suggests a deeper level of interconnectedness,
Mm-hmm.
a sense that we're not just passive observers,
Right.
but active participants in shaping reality.
Precisely. It challenges us to consider the potential consequences of our actions on a grander scale.
Right.
If our choices can echo through time,
Uh-huh.
it adds a whole new dimension to the idea of responsibility.
But if the past is fluid,
Yeah.
if our personal histories are malleable,
Mm-hmm.
what does that mean for our sense of self?
It's where D-theory delves into some truly mind-bending territory.
Okay.
It suggests that our sense of self might not be a static entity,
Right.
but a dynamic process,
Mm-hmm.
constantly evolving
Okay.
and being shaped by the flow of information and consciousness across time.
So our identities aren't fixed, but are constantly evolving.
That's a fascinating way to think about it.
Okay.
And it leads to one of the most profound and awe-inspiring concepts explored in D-theory,
Right.
the omega point.
We touched on this earlier.
Yeah.
It's the idea that the universe is evolving toward a point of ultimate complexity and consciousness, right?
Yes. The omega point, as described in D-theory,
Yeah.
is a state of maximum information processing where all potentialities are realized
Oh.
and time itself might become completely malleable.
Right.
It's a point where information,
Uh-huh.
consciousness,
Mhm.
and reality converge.
So is it like the end of the universe?
It's more of a transcendence, a state where the distinction between past, present,
Mhm.
and future dissolves.
Wow.
And all of time becomes unified.
Okay.
It's a concept that pushes the boundaries of our understanding
Right.
and challenges us to rethink the very nature of reality.
Wow. Just trying to grasp these concepts is a mind-bending experience.
Yeah.
D-theory opens up so many new possibilities and
Right.
challenges so many assumptions.
And that's the beauty of it.
Right.
It's a framework that encourages us to keep questioning,
Uh-huh.
keep exploring,
Yeah.
and keep our minds open to the incredible mysteries of time and the universe.
Well, I think it's safe to say that our deep dive into D-theory has left us with more questions than answers,
Yeah.
but in the best way possible. It's given us a whole new lens through which to view time,
Mm-hmm.
consciousness,
Yeah.
and the universe itself.
If you're intrigued by these ideas,
Okay.
I highly recommend checking out Alex Vikulov's work, especially his book Temporal Mechanics, D-Theory, as a critical upgrade to our understanding of the nature of time.
Right.
It's a challenging but rewarding read that will make you question everything you thought you knew about reality.
Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey into the depths of D-Theory.
Yeah.
It's a topic that will stay with us long after this deep dive is over.
Mm-hmm.
Until next time, keep exploring,
Right.
keep questioning, and keep your minds wide open to the infinite possibilities that exist within and beyond the realm of time.
Extadelic Media.